if you're on Social Security. And by a show of hands, can you tell me if prior to this president, you'd ever missed a check or a deposit?
Never.
No. No one. That's going to change. And when you miss it, do you think anybody is going to be there to pick up the phone when you call because you have a problem?
No.
But we're talking about a government handout, right? I mean, this is something that... No? It's your money? Well, I mean, you only paid into it for like a year or two, right? 40 years? 45 years? 48 years?
Paper route at age 14.
Paper route at age 14. I was a paper route as age 10, so I'm with you. So if I had been paying my own money for 30 to 40 years into Social Security, and some orange idiot came into office and put it at risk, I'd show up at my community center on a Tuesday night too.
That's right.
I'd be pissed off as well. So I'm with you. But I'm going to need your help. I'm going to need your help. And that's what tonight is all about. We're in this together. If they're not going to hold town halls, to hell with them. I'll show up and I'll talk to you. And I'll learn from you. But this guy's never around. The only Kevin who has gone missing more is the Kevin from Home Alone. But other than that, we can't find this guy. We can't find this guy.
Can't find McClintock either.
Yeah.
We can't find McClintock either.
Nope.
But what I want to talk to you about today are the values that are under attack and at risk, and what our values are. This tonight is an achievement of your organizing. But think about some of the small victories that we've had. In the courts, organizations like the ACLU and Democracy Forward have put speed bumps on this president. Even unexpected victories at the Supreme Court. We showed that you can't buy the Supreme Court of Wisconsin. Raise your hand if you wrote a postcard, sent a text message, made a contribution, or told someone to go vote in Wisconsin. We all did that. Later this year, and by the way, if I was the only one doing a town hall in another Republican's district, it probably wouldn't be that effective. But I'm not. Jasmine Crockett is on the road. Maxwell Cross is on the road. Robert Garcia is on the road. Bernie Sanders and Congresswoman Cox are on the road. So my promise to you tonight is small victories will bring us big victories. Start the year with wins in Wisconsin, New Jersey, Virginia at the end of the year, and you go into the midterms with candidates who have self-recruited, getting high-caliber candidates who want to run for Congress across the country to help us flip these seats. He's disappearing people. And let's not get dragged into the debate about whether we agree with what this individual said about this issue. People are being grabbed in the dark of night and taken to death camps without any rights. So the values we're standing up for are due process and free speech. Due process and free speech. Those are American values. Those are American values. What are the issues for Democrats? What are they going to run on, etc. I actually think dance with the one that brought it. what are the issues that people trust us the most on? It's healthcare and retirement security. And not just protecting healthcare, I believe, but also innovating and making it more accessible, healthcare for all, but using innovation and investments in research and science to make sure more people can have it and more people discover cures. So, Kevin Kiley, it's very simple. Will he or will he not vote for the billionaire tax cut that Donald Trump is going to give, which will cost us Medi-Cal? 30+% of Californians receive their health care through Medi-Cal. 40+% of births are Medi-Cal births. So he's going to have to make that choice. There's no other way to give these billionaire bros their tax cuts. And so I would just press on him on those issues. And then also with the DOGE cuts, by the way, take a victory lap, because there was a DOGE layoff today that we can all support. Elon Musk DOGE'd himself out of a job because he changed the first efficiency that they have found. But those are the two issues. That's what I think people are going to really, it's going to hit them the most. I want to say on the SAVE Act and the question about voting rights, how do you go from a democracy to a dictatorship? Well, you make people think that they can still vote, but the vote has been rigged from the beginning because you limit who has access, and you call anyone who opposes you a traitor, an enemy, or influenced by a foreign government. They still hold elections in Russia and Iran, right? So they still have the facade of a democracy. So first and foremost, the SAVE Act is the greatest threat right now to free and fair elections in the United States. It has to pass the Senate with 60 votes to become law. That means maximum pressure has to be put on the 7 senators who are most at risk of voting for it. If they get 7 senators, it becomes law. And that's a nightmare scenario for us going into the midterms. It's a ban on women voting, essentially, married women. Women who change their names, which is the majority of women in America, would have no way to prove that they're eligible to vote. But that's kind of the intent, right? That's kind of the intent, is to disenfranchise women. So let's fight what's right in front of us, the SAVE Act. Maximum pressure on the senators who would be most at risk. And again, I think you guys know how to make phone calls, send text messages, postcards, and reach out to elected officials. But more broadly, I would argue we need to max out democracy in the blue states. I don't think anyone would say that voting is such a great experience in California and New York. How about, and I'm going to be putting forward legislation that says no voter shall wait in line for longer than 30 minutes. I mean, if we have governorships and majorities in the legislature in California, in New York, in Colorado, why don't we max out and show what democracy is supposed to look like as far as access, rather than being the lowest common denominator? So I think putting pressure on, blue state governors and legislators to make sure that we, as I said, max out democracy, be an example rather than that lowest common denominator. Also, as it relates to who you referred to as the innocent Maryland man who's been sent to the death camp in El Salvador. What do we do if the president just violates the Supreme Court order? Yes, the judge has the ability to have his own prosecutor, to hold anyone who violates the order in contempt. The judge should do all of that. I have legislation that I'm working on that would take the Marshal Service out of the executive branch. Yeah. It should not be in the executive branch. Because you can imagine we are living in a scenario where judges rely on security from the president. And do you think the president, who has pulled the Secret Service details of people on his own, John Bolton and Mike Pompeo, who were seen as not true MAGA, they had their Secret Service details recently pulled? Do you think he's going to protect a judge that's being threatened? No. But more so than that, I think our blue state attorneys general need to be prepared and to tell us, as the chief law enforcement officers in your states, what are you prepared to do when the president violates the law? Because they're not helpless. They are not helpless. They have their own prosecutorial abilities and authorities. And so, if the president's going to bring a constitutional crisis, bring the law enforcement authorities that you have to that crisis. So we're not helpless on that. But again, it's the public sentiment that has even put us in a position, I think, where we can talk about the rights of due process and free speech. And that's the work that you're doing. I want to say to the question about what are we doing to get younger people to vote or to broaden our coalition. First, what I tell my colleagues is you should now, with a 34 count felon in the White House, you should feel liberated to just say what you actually believe and not be so polished and scripted. I do think we have not just a messaging problem, but many times my colleagues or candidates, they try and project what they think a candidate for office looks like, or we think that messaging is winning the Harvard Law School moot court competition, when it's really just winning a gut check at the bus stop or the bar room. So just say it. Give us your zero draft answer as to how you feel. And I bet it will reflect how most people feel in the community. So let's be just more real, more raw.
Yeah.
Let's also, let me say, on so many of our values, we have a lot of people who want to be with us. As I said, I'm the son of 2 Republicans. I married a girl from Southern Indiana whose mom, before she retired, was the Pence family dentist. Like, I've been around Republicans. I'm from a cop family. There are a lot of people who want to be with us. But what I hear a lot is that some of you make it too hard to be a Democrat. You give me too many hoops I have to jump through. And so to that I say this: let's not ask people to take values that they are beginning to tolerate and always expect them to celebrate. I'm going to go to the parade. You're going to go to the parade. But let's not make parade attendance mandatory for everyone. Because the way I see it is, if you value freedom and you hate fascism, you're on my team. If you are for cures and you hate cancer and the people who would fire cancer scientists, you're on my team. You love cures and hate cancer, you're on my team. And if you love our kids and you hate the guns that help their killers, you're on our team. Like, those are the values that we all share. We love freedom. We love healthcare for all, and one that innovates. And we want to protect our kids from the most dangerous people having the most dangerous weapons. So if there are other issues that folks have, let's disagree, but let's not make it so hard for them to be on our team. Any writer would tell you the most terrifying thing is a blank page, and that's essentially where we are, coming out of this. We don't have the White House, the Senate, or the House. We have a new DNC chair in Ken Martin. It's a blank page. Daunting. But to me, I see opportunity, and I think this goes to the question that you just asked as to who we are and who do we connect with. I will tell you, we can't abandon what has got us to the dance, as I said. It's healthcare. whether it was President Johnson and Medicare, President Obama and the Affordable Care Act, or saving the Affordable Care Act and winning the midterms in 2018. By the way, the lowest approval rate for Donald Trump in his first term was not, sadly, on January 6th. It was when he tried to repeal the Affordable Care Act. So there's a reason people trust us. It's because we take care of each other when it comes to healthcare. So we have to be, as I said, the party of healthcare, but healthcare for all. And cures for all. That's going to resonate with people. Because they're the only ones that can get rid of Trump. Look, this is a 2 to 3 seat majority that they have right now. To your point, sir, we can't give them votes. And as Speaker Pelosi said, when the Senate completely rolled over on funding the Musk madness, she said, like, why were they so cheap? Like, you don't give away anything without getting something in return. So I don't know what any of my colleagues have gotten on any of the votes you pointed out in return. And by the way, we are weak with power. I'll just say that, we're venting now. We're weak with power. When we had the White House, the Senate, the House, the 2 times in my lifetime, we were weak with power. And Americans look at Democrats and they say, you can't pass and enact into law popular things. And Republicans, when they have power, the White House, the Senate, and the House, they enact unpopular things. So maybe if you were as strong as they are with that which is unpopular, with what is popular, like gun safety, like protecting our environment and stopping climate chaos, like making sure that every woman everywhere can make a decision about her own body. If you could just do that, we would be with you. To the point earlier about how you get younger people in. Well, flex when you have power. Don't be like, we've got the filibuster that we have to look out for, and everything has to be a compromise. Why would we compromise with the NRA? They've abandoned our kids. Why would we compromise with that? So we don't have to be so weak the next time that we have power. But the first way that you protect those who are serving our country is to respect them. You don't go into the Pentagon and fire almost the entire chain of command. People in the military will tell you, as worried as they are about what's happening in our country, there's this belief that the order and values of the military and the respect for lawful orders and not carrying out unlawful orders is what will protect us. I've heard it from so many service members and so many veterans. The faith in the military. We saw this from General Milley. We saw this from Secretary of Defense Esper. People who were unwilling to shoot at protesters when the president asked them why they couldn't do that. People who stood up for our veterans when the president said, why did they sign up to serve? And called them suckers and losers. But this president, your husband was not a sucker or a loser. Your husband is a living hero. Thank you. So this president is firing the leadership at the Pentagon. And what I worry about for Santos, and the reason we're all in this room, is the president is creating more enemies in the world. He's creating more enemies in the world. What do you think happens when he says he wants to make Gaza a resort? It just recruits more people to want to carry out an attack against us. What do you think happens when you make an enemy out of Canada? What? They have gone shoulder to shoulder with us in every conflict that we've asked them to go into. We're making enemies all over the world. The war that was supposed to end on day one, we're almost 100 days into this presidency, and Secretary Rubio today announced he wasn't even going to the London talks on Russia-Ukraine. So we're just stepping back and letting Putin run rampant in the region. We have to create more allies in the world. Our best security is our alliances. That's our best security. That's Santos's best shot of being a warfighter who can go and achieve victory on any battlefield, God forbid, if he is called. I promise that not only will I stand up for that, I will hold my colleagues to account who don't, but more than that, I have faith in you that you're going to stand up for every service member like our grandson Santos. Thank you. It's not a page turn, but it is very insightful, and it's really helped me think about the age that we're in. It's called Nexus by Yuval Harari. He wrote the book Sapiens. But in the book, he essentially argues that the conservative movement has viewed information, and it's about the history of information, from the beginning of time through the development of different religions to the standing up of democracies. But the conservative movement today views information as a means to power, and that more liberal-minded people, Democrats, have always viewed information as a means to the truth. So, how did it get this way? We are up against a side, extremists in this MAGA movement, who don't care about whether what they say is true or not. It's only whether it's a means to more power. And sir, I understand what you're saying about why are we talking about this Maryland man? Why is that the issue? To me, if a president of the United States is willing to go on television and Photoshop in a gang tattoo to make that evidence that that person belongs in a death camp in El Salvador, they may not have found you yet, but they'll find you. That kind of mindset that you can just lie as a means to power, they'll find all of us. So we can hang together or hang separately. That's how I see it right now. And we're linking arms in this. And also, just tell the people who are still upset and angry and living in despair about the last election, tell them that you understand they may not be ready to fight just yet. And you can tell them that's okay. But make sure you tell them this. Right now, you'll fight for them. Because that's what you're doing tonight. And, this is the most important part, when they're ready, because as you said earlier, man, you were scared, but now you're pissed off. Tell them that when they're ready, you're going to have your arm out, and you're ready to link arms with them, so they can join the fight. On Pete Hegseth, well, we made everyone RSVP to learn the location of tonight's event, and then I learned that Pete Hegseth had just disclosed it publicly anyway. When we get back to Congress next week, articles of impeachment need to be filed. We should have filed a couple weeks ago. What are we doing? And we have enough veterans and national security officers in our party who should be the ones leading us. And for the sake of Santos, we can't have this guy putting out national security information every time he wants to open a group chat. Yeah. And what do you think they would do
I want to know what his
if
bathroom
this
looks like.
was someone in the Biden or Obama administration? The fact that he has not had articles of impeachment brought forward so like this early goes back to what I was saying earlier. Like sometimes we're just too weak. Anyone can do this. I think it's best if it comes from a veteran or somebody who was an intelligence officer, who was in the House. Being the guardians of that issue and not just making sure that what you paid is given to you and delivered to you and the promise is kept, but making sure the people who you can call, and sir, you mentioned that you've been on Social Security for a while, like when there's an issue, somebody should answer the phone. You shouldn't have to open up an X account as they're proposing to close regional offices and have you go on Elon Musk's social media platform to get your Social Security benefit. But what we did in the very beginning when I asked how many of you are Social Security, I mean, that was eye-popping to see the number of people here who depend on that. And that's the message. That's the message. They're fucking with those people. They're fucking with us and the benefit that we paid into. And we're not going to be fucked with. No. I get that it's uncomfortable to speak truth to power, to stand up to the person in your own party. I get it. I have a lawsuit against this guy. It's the only one that's left. It's me and the January 6th officers together for January 6th. It's the only one that's left that he can. I was the only House member that testified in the 14th Amendment case to keep him off the ballot in Colorado. I was an impeachment manager. I helped Adam Schiff lead the Russia investigation. A friend of mine recently said to me, why don't you just drop the lawsuit, make a deal with him, and then he won't go after you? I'm like, for what? For what? So I get the concern, and it's real. The death threats are real. But you're in the arena. And whether democracy survives or does not depends on whether you can find the courage to stand up against him and stand up for what makes our country such a special place. And so I don't know what else to tell that person other than do your job and honor the oath that you took. And these are the moments that our history, this is why we learned civics and history in school and other countries that failed this test. It is to meet it right now. And so we need them to meet it right now, or we should just, as I said, keep democracy and free and fair elections together so we can go beat them. I also want to say this about immigration. Last year, I was having lunch with a foreign minister from Southeast Asia. And he said to me, as we were talking about immigration, I'll tell you, it was one or two glasses of wine over the lunch. I think he knew my district has like 80 wineries. As we were talking about immigration, he said to me, you know, America has 3 billion people in its country. And I thought, oh, I got a couple glasses of wine. And I politely said, it's about 350 million. And he said, no. He said, you have 3 billion people in the world who would give up everything to come to your country. He said, there's no other country in the world that has that. Not China, not Russia, not any of our competitors. We have 3 billion people, he said, back of the envelope, who would come here. He said, and if you get it right, you can bring the best of the best. And so he was just puzzled, like why would we want to be a country that closes its doors to immigrants? It puts us at such a competitive disadvantage in the world. And so I think we can be a country that has border security, but also addresses the workforce crisis that we have in America. in agriculture, in hospitality, in food and beverage. And also educate our own kids at the same time to make sure that first and foremost, they can compete for those jobs. We can do all of that. And by the way, I think higher of the next generation of kids than believing that their first job should be sewing Nikes or putting iPhones together. I just happen to think higher of the next generation. The president does not. I think in times like these, you learn what people are made of. And even unexpected leaders emerge, and it's forcing that right now. And I can't tell you today who is the leader of the Democratic Party. And I would suggest to you it's more an Avengers model right now than anything else. But you have inspired me and convinced me that we're going to get through this. We're going to get through this. We're going to flip this seat right here to get through this. A couple weeks ago, I was on the road and at an airport. And sadly, because of the threats that we all receive, oftentimes airport security will have to walk me to my gate. My own daughter has drawn in our own security person into her family photo. We're all puzzled, like, who's that guy? She told us. But 2 air marshals pulled me aside and said that we're not speaking in our personal capacity. We just wanted to thank you for being in the fight. And we wanted you to know it doesn't go unnoticed. And what I want to tell you is that you're in this fight. And that there are a lot of people counting on us to stay in this fight. Those federal employees who protect us in the skies from terrorism, they're counting on us to stay in this fight so they can do their job and make sure you don't have to worry about your security. We're going to get through this. And I'm so optimistic that on election night, November 4, 2026, when we win the House, I know I'm going to be asked, how were you so sure? I'm going to tell them, I was so sure because during the darkest time of the first 2 years, on a Tuesday night at the Folsom Community Center, 600 people showed up, and they said, we're not going to be fucked with. That's why I'm so sure. Thank you. Thank you, Folsom. Thank you, Folsom Area Democrats, Congressman, Les Francis, Jessica Morris, Sue Michael Hall. Thank you all so much. I'm all in. I know you're all in too. Thank you.